All right, my free-minded thinkers, thanks for joining me today. J.R. Dukes here. I have a very good video today and some great news for President Donald Trump. If you've been following my channel for any length of time or been listening to the news, you know one of the many cases against our great former president, Donald Trump, is in New York City, New York State, brought by that crazy Marxist Attorney General, Letitia James is her name. Yesterday, there has been more good news delivered to Donald Trump because there have been witnesses put on the stands from Deutsche Bank and some other institutions, many witnesses, not just one, that basically said that the president did not do anything wrong via the way he was disclosing the value of his Mar-a-Lago and other properties. So without further ado, we're going to get right into it right now.
In Donald Trump's ongoing, highly politicized so-called fraud trial in New York City, a Deutsche Bank executive gave testimony today that could bolster Donald Trump's defense in his $250 million civil fraud trial. Donald Trump is due back in court, I believe it's December 11th. I know who knows the answer to this. Let's welcome legal spokeswoman for Donald Trump and general counsel for Save America, Alina.
This is one of Donald Trump's main attorneys, in case you don't recognize her face. This is the individual, the main attorney that is normally sitting beside the president whenever he is in court.
Great to see you, Alina.
Thank you.
I've shown you this before off camera, but I want to read to you the legal definition of fraud, which is what your client is accused of. It says, as usually applied under state laws, the term fraud or dishonesty encompasses such matters as larceny, theft, embezzlement, forgery, misappropriation, wrongful abstraction, wrongful conversion, willful misapplication, or any other fraudulent or dishonest acts, and these last four words are key, resulting in financial loss.
This is very important that you understand this. He kind of just threw this definition out there, but generally speaking, most states, when it comes under state law pertaining to fraud, the bottom line is this: you have to have intent, which they have to prove at trial. And the second thing you have to have is you have to have a victim. You have to have someone saying, hey, I was defrauded by this individual. I was defrauded by this company. And in this particular case, there are no victims. So keep that in mind.
Where was the financial loss in the case that's being brought against your client?
New Yorkers that are paying Miss James to bring this witch hunt against Donald Trump. That's the answer for you,
True,
David.
very true.
It's absurd. The president made people money. The Trump organization has paid hundreds of millions of dollars in taxes, of payroll taxes, employs thousands of employees. His statement of financial condition was undervalued. And today we had multiple Deutsche Bank witnesses testify that it didn't matter. His value was so high that even if you cut it in half, he still would have been fine. And the Deutsche Bank still would have had him an ultra net worth group, and he still would have gotten the same loan terms.
So make sure you understand that. What she just said is that the witnesses from the bank told the judge that, hey, even if the president overinflated the value of the property, and of course the president would say he did not inflate the value of the property, but let's just pretend that he might have. It's his opinion. He overinflated it. I want to point out the president also states that as part of the financial disclosure, there's right on the top, it says, hey, this is what we believe is true. This is what we came up with. But the bank, you need to do your own due diligence and come up with your own valuation. Having said this, the bank themselves are going to say, hey, even if you cut it in half, the valuations, the president would have still been issued the loan under the exact same terms that he received the loan.
Asked for a directed verdict from this judge. We said, Judge.
Just stop. What does that mean?
Sure. Directed verdict means there is no need to proceed to waste taxpayer dollars on this witch hunt because we have proven the case. There was no fraud. The banks made money. The president is worth a lot more than his statements of financial condition.
Has any bank suggested that they lost money because of their dealings with Donald Trump?
Every bank has made money. There has never been a default. And when there were holidays, the Trump organization paid early before the holidays to make sure there was never issues.
Now, Letitia James.
I just want to interject a real quick note that published reports have it that during the time frame in question with this particular suit from this AG, the banks have reported that they earned over $100 million from President Donald Trump and his companies.
The Attorney General brought the case, claims that there was probable loss because of the fact that the banks could have made more money on interest, on charging a greater interest, to which you say what?
To which I say they all got paid early. They got paid with interest and early ahead of the loans. There were step downs, there were personal guarantees, and the assets were worth more than the financial condition.
So the attorney general is reaching. This is how corrupt this woman is. Remember, this woman that you see on your screen right here, this is the woman that ran for attorney general, and she told her voters basically, hey, listen, elect me and I'll go after that SOB. She used profanity, all kinds of nasty, vulgar type language, and she's really clear. I'm going to get that SOB. I'm going to get that guy. You elect me. I'm going to go after him, his family, his children. I'm going to clobber him. I'm going to bring the full weight of the state against this guy. This violates so many judicial canons, rules of ethics that these people are supposed to live by. Prosecutors, attorney generals, they are held to what's called a standard of ethics. They're not supposed to engage in this type of behavior, even though they are allowed to obviously engage in this type of behavior. They are supposed to say, hey, this is not what the law is meant for. I'm not supposed to go after good people. I'm not supposed to go after somebody to try to keep him from being the next president of the United States. This is insane. This type of junk only happens in third world countries. And unfortunately, we can no longer say that.
It doesn't make sense. New Yorkers should be afraid. Miss James is putting her nose into private contracts where there were absolutely no victims, where everybody on both sides of the contract kept their word, kept their deal, and made money. And she now wants to, because she ran on Trump, and because this is, again, the political election interference that we're seeing across the country right now, stop him.
Well, all Americans should be concerned about the way this has been. First of all, the judge decided that he was guilty before the trial.
That's right.
Secondly,
I want to make sure you caught that. Before the trial, quote unquote trial, even started, the judge, that Judge Ertheron, whatever his name is, said that Donald Trump and his companies are guilty, and his children for the matter, are guilty of consumer fraud under this crazy New York statute. And as a result, this trial is only for one thing, to determine how much money the president and his company should pay, and if the president should essentially be barred from doing business in New York ever again. It's an outrage, an absolute outrage, and we should all be outraged over this.
Not only was there a gag order against him, but one against you as well. The last time I saw you in there, you couldn't talk about a lot of this.
Yeah.
You won that case.
Yes, we had it stayed, and now we're appealing that. And I got to tell you, the appellate division was great. They saw it for what it was. It's a constitutional First Amendment right.
Remember, this nutty judge put a gag order in because he says he did not want his employees, his right-hand clerk, whatever, even though these people are all political hacks. The judge is a Democrat, elected Democratic judge. The lady that's in question, his employee, she's a Democratic operative. She is involved with Democratic campaigns and Democratic causes all over the state of New York. The judge somehow thinks that she should be immune from any kind of criticism or anybody talking about her. You cannot just hide behind some kind of shield saying, I'm fearful, therefore you don't have the right, Mr. President, to go out and protect yourself.
The Sixth Amendment right to counsel. I could not make objections based on a law clerk who was making campaign contributions, cheering on Letitia James on video and the anti-Trump rallies, and I wasn't allowed to speak about it in court.
This lady, this law clerk in question, she was caught, seen, photographed attending anti-Trump rallies. And yet Donald Trump and his lawyers at the time were barred from even discussing this. Thankfully, the New York Court of Appeals has overturned that ridiculous unconstitutional gag order. It's still working its way up to higher courts, but as of right now, they can talk about it.
Court or out of court.
Now, it seems that the judge in the case, again, he came out with his guilty verdict before the trial began. He is a political judge. He's been elected. He's a Democrat. We know that. But he was particularly interested in you keeping that information about his clerk secret. Why?
Yes.
Boy, that's one handsome-looking dude right there, ain't he? That's just one good-looking judge. I tell you what, when I see that dude smile, it just gives me the creeps.
Yes. According to him, there were threats. Well, I'd like him to...
I don't know if you've seen the stories about him. I need to find this video and play it for y'all. But allegedly, and I've seen it on the internet, there are all kinds of photos of this judge doing things that, well, you just wouldn't think of a judge doing on the internet and taking pictures of on the internet. I don't want to digress. I'll try to make that into another video, but this guy is clearly a whack.
To meet the world that we are in right now. And the reason there are threats and the reason there is polarization of anybody who takes political stances is because That is what the Biden administration, that is what we live in right now, wokeness and polarization. And that's exactly what President Trump wants to get rid of. When you see what happened with this law clerk, there is no place for that when you go into a judge, into a clerk's office. They are supposed to be arbiters that follow the judicial ethics conduct rules. They did not follow them. There are canons. They were broken. Right. And everyone is ignoring it. The judge would not even read our mistrial papers. He wouldn't even address them. He said, I won't sign the order because then I could appeal it. That is how corrupt we're dealing with.
Well, now you're free to talk.
I'm free to
You're
talk.
free to get all this out there. Do you think that the American people have won so far in what they have? You only have 5 seconds for this.
I don't know that the American people have won. I think that we need to win in 24 to get the Americans back.
Alina Habba, great to see you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, so there you have it. The good news is, so far, Donald Trump has 2 major good pieces of news. If you remember a few weeks ago, his ex-attorney, his ex-fixer, that Michael Cohen, he told the court that at no time did Donald Trump ever instruct him to inflate values of the real estate in question, which is huge. This is something that the state of New York has to prove to the judge that Donald Trump did, and apparently they can't do that because this so-called fixer, this crooked Michael Cohen, I definitely do not like this guy. He's a convicted liar. Remember this. He's been in prison for crimes, including but not limited to lying. I believe he's been convicted of lying to Congress and some other issues. But the bottom line is this guy is a convicted criminal, a convicted liar. And at the same time, he even told the judge that Donald Trump at no time told me to inflate the values. That is huge. It should have been dismissed right then and there. And with this new revelations coming out that the banks say, hey, Donald Trump did not do anything inappropriate, that even if he overinflated it and we cut it in half, we would have still given Donald Trump and his companies the same loan under the same terms and conditions. Nothing would have changed. In my opinion, folks, in my opinion, this is case closed. It should not go any further. They should save the California taxpayers from having to pay any more money, put this ridiculous political stunt to bed. Kill it right now. It needs to stop. Let me know what you think. Please put in the comments below. Do you agree? Do you disagree? And tell me why. I like to know. I like to have a conversation with you about this. So take a moment and leave me a comment. I like to always remind you to like, subscribe, hit that thumbs button. And remember, if you subscribe, you get 10 years of good luck. You didn't know that? I'm glad I told you. Remember, folks, keep that mind free. Never give up. And until next time, I am J.R. Dukes.